Chapter 1785. However, Dustless ignored her. His aggressive eyes stared at Duanmu Rong without moving. His right eye had undergone a strange change. His black pupil had turned into a unique blue and white eyeball. What is this bastard trying to do? Duanmu Rong scolded in her heart. She felt uncomfortable being stared at by Wu Qin all the time. Sometimes, his eyes would flash and it made her feel very uncomfortable. She felt as if she had been seen naked. Youth, Duanmu Rong, who couldn't bear it any longer, finally exploded. She opened her mouth and was about to berate Wu Qin to get lost when that icy cold voice sounded in advance. You dare to trick me? Dustless turned his head and stared at Qi Lian. His tone was filled with hostility. What do you mean? I don't understand. Please make it clear. I've already given you the antidote. Don't tell me you want to go back on your word. Qi Lian remained calm and fearlessly looked into Dustless's cold eyes. You think you're so smart. Seeing this, Wu Qin sneered. Even though Qi Lian concealed it very cleverly, he still clearly caught the panic in the depths of his eyes that disappeared in a flash. There's no doubt that the antidote pill you gave me just now has temporarily stabilized Miss Duanmu's condition. However, Dustless's expression turned cold. Don't think you can hide it from my eyes. The pill you gave her only temporarily suppressed the poison in her body. It didn't solve the root cause of the poison. The pill just now only stabilized it temporarily. I'm afraid that the poison will erupt again in less than an hour. Dustless said sternly. His tone was filled with immense pressure as he pounced on the embarrassed Qi Lian. What's wrong with this guy? How did he find out? Qi Lian scratched her head but could not figure out the reason. Just as Dustless had guessed, the pill just now was not an antidote. It only temporarily suppressed the snake poison. After a few hours, the poison would erupt again. Dustless's eyes emitted a cold luster, especially his right eye, which was covered with a layer of ice. Arrogant woman, I've warned you before, those tricks used to deal with ordinary people are outdated. The unique blue and white eyes are actually the Tensigen, the sublimated version of the Byakugan, which can clearly see the situation of the human body. Through the vision of the Tensigen, Dustless found a large amount of purple venom lingering in Duanmu Rong's body. It was the snake venom just now. You wasted your chance to live and chose death. Dustless approached Crimson Viper coldly, grabbed her chin and said, Do you want me to cut off your head first, or disfigure your face first? Or should I just throw you into the lake to feed the fishes? His methods are truly frightening. Being stared at by Dustless's demonic eyes, Red Viper simply chuckled. If you wanted to kill me, you would have done it just now. Is that so? In the fight just now, she also understood that Dustless's moves were very strange. Although similar, it was not the so-called internal force. Is it? It seems that I am destined to die here. Duanmu Rong's eyes flashed with a deep despair. Yes. I have a good idea. Dustless suddenly slapped his forehead, glanced at Red Viper, and said softly, Although I don't know about internal force, there is one person who does, and her strength is not bad, Quicksand Red Viper. You want her to help me expel the poison. Duanmu Rong glanced at Dustless unhappily and rolled her eyes. If she let Red Viper do it, she would die faster. Are you really willing to help me? Actually, I have another idea. Although it is a little dangerous, please believe me. Duanmu Rong's mind flashed, and she stared at Dustless with a longing gaze. Then, she exposed her white neck, and with a burning face, aimed at Dustless's mouth. Clenching her silver teeth, Duanmu Rong explained, I still have a lot of 100 herb pills with me, which can ensure that I am immune to poison for 4 hours. Eat one, and then use your mouth to suck out the snake poison for me. After thinking about it, this was the only way Duanmu Rong could think of to save herself. You mean use my mouth? Dustless was stunned when he heard this. He stared at the serious Duanmu Rong, only to see that her expression was meticulous, and her eyes were filled with determination. Obviously, she was not joking. Yo, Sister Duanmu, really, it is not appropriate to trick an ignorant handsome guy like this. You have tasted all kinds of herbs since you were young, and you are immune to poison, but you still can't resist the poison of my green scale flame snake. Do you think this guy can resist the poison even if he ate the 100-herb pill? This is going to kill him. Red Viper deliberately raised her voice, and a cunning light flickered in her eyes to sow discord. As she said, the situation is indeed like this. If you are not willing, I will not force you. Duanmu Rong did not refute, and seriously looked at Dustless's eyes. Is this the 100-herb pill? Dustless took the pill in Duanmu Rong's hand. He still remembered that this pill was able to resist the poison of the 1,000 night dove feathers, and the effect was really good. I have always been a lucky person, and Miss Duanmu has helped me before. This kind of small matter can be left to me. Without thinking, Dustless swallowed the 100-herb pill directly. His mouth was close to Duanmu Rong's white neck, and he began to suck out all the poison from her body. As for the 100-herb pill, Dustless was just pretending. After all, she was a dignified 10-tailed beast, the ultimate immortal existence. How could she be poisoned to death by a mere snake poison? Although he was a little dizzy, it was just a small problem and not a big deal. Oh, Jinghu Medical Manor has a guest. And he's so close to Sister Rong. Could it be? Hee. No wonder Sister Rong always puts on an icy face when dealing with others. It turns out that she already has someone she likes. A pleasant voice resounded through the sky, and a beautiful woman with long silver hair suddenly appeared in front of them. Could this person be Snow Lady? Dustless followed the source of the voice, and his heart immediately palpitated. This tall figure and slightly teasing voice, there was only one person in the Mo family who fit the description, Snow Lady. The peerless beauty was wearing a bluish-purple open-collar silk dress, a crystal headdress, crystal earrings, blue crystal dancing clogs, and grayish-blue eyeshadow. She was like a star that filled the void. No matter where she went, she was the center of attention. What's the meaning of this? Dustless frowned. Although it was nice to have two beauties by his side, he could clearly feel a faint murderous intent locking onto him. There was no one around except for Snow Lady. Who else could it be? I didn't offend her, so why is she hostile towards me? Could it be because I'm an outsider? Dustless lowered his head and thought. After thinking for a long time, this was the only reason. May I know your name? Snow Lady wasn't in a hurry to talk to Duanmu Rong. Instead, she looked at Dustless and revealed a sincere smile. She didn't show it on the surface, but she was secretly on her guard. Apart from the Mo family, almost all outsiders would get lost in the Mirror Lake Medical Manor. Furthermore, this unfamiliar stranger wasn't a disciple of the Mo family. She was immediately on guard and suspicious. Especially since Duanmu Rong and Dustless seemed to have a close relationship. Just call me Dustless. Dustless clasped his hands in greeting, and his tone was a little magnetic. This world was in ancient times, and the so-called handshake ceremony was not popular. If he went to grab the Snow Lady's hand, he might be stabbed to death by her sword. Dustless. Her delicate nose wrinkled slightly, and she pondered for a moment. She realized that she didn't know Dustless, nor had she heard of this name before. Big Sister Rong is injured. Snow Lady noticed the teeth marks on Duanmu Rong's neck, and a ruthless look appeared on her face. She was bitten by a poisonous snake. I've already sucked the poison out. She's fine for now. Dustless gave her a comforting look. At the same time, he rubbed his chin, feeling a little uncomfortable. After all, he had sucked out a large amount of poisonous blood. Who did this? How did they find the Mirror Lake Medical Manor? Even a disciple of the Mo family might get lost. While she was worried, Snow Lady's eyes were fixed on Dustless. There were even energy ripples in her palm. Its flowing sands crimson drill. Duanmu Rong shook her head slightly. Chapter 1787. Quicksand Red Chain. The smile on the Snow Lady's face disappeared and was replaced by a repressed expression. Quicksand's Red Chain. The leader of their organization is Wei Zhuang, right? The Mo family is one of the biggest anti-Qin powers. Wei Zhuang is a noble from South Korea. South Korea was destroyed by the Qin nation. Wei Zhuang and the Qin nation also have a deep grudge. Why are they targeting us? Furthermore, Quicksand is quite bold. Don't they know that the Mo family has an irreconcilable feud with them? That. As for the specific reason, Dustless opened his dry mouth. His words attracted the Snow Lady and Duanmu Rong's attention. Why? You know. Even though Duanmu Rong had helped Wuchen escape, the Snow Lady was still on her guard. Her clear voice was very cold. Even if Sister Rong vouches for you, your identity is still very mysterious. No one knows about it. If you want to gain my trust, you have to at least tell me your background. Bullsh *T background. Dustless rolled his eyes in his heart. He wanted to say something but stopped. He had just arrived in this world. He didn't have a family, nor did he join any sect. He was just an ordinary person. He didn't have a prominent background to brag about. I'm just an ordinary person. Why does this lady care about my reputation? Dustless replied calmly. The Mo family advocates love with impartiality and non-aggression. If one is successful, one should help the world. If one is poor, one should only care for oneself. Your sect is one of the top sects, and everyone knows about your teachings. It shouldn't be a problem for you to take me in, right? Snow Lady, why do you have to reject me like this? Could it be that the Mo family's love with impartiality is just a lie? You rascal, the Snow Lady's face twitched a few times. She was a little embarrassed. As one of the leaders of the Mo family, she was actually scolded by an outsider using the Mo family's teachings. She was speechless. The Snow Lady wanted to find a hole to hide in. What a sharp tongue. What a powerful mouth. Duanmu Rong was surprised in her heart as well, and she stared at Dustless with interest. This fellow's strength is extremely formidable, and his mouth is clever like a venomous snake, causing others to be unable to refute him. In this world, Dustless was the only person who would use the teachings of the Mo family to attack the people of the Mo family. Snow Lady, I know you have misgivings, but as you saw just now, if it weren't for Dustless, you, and I would already be dead. Please believe him. My life was saved by Dustless, so I'm willing to use my life as a guarantee. Duanmu Rong stared into the Snow Maiden's eyes and spoke in a carefree manner. There was no regret in her voice. Did I hear wrongly? The Snow Maiden wasn't the only one in a daze. Dustless was also at a loss for words. Sister Rong, are you serious? After taking a deep breath of cold air, the Snow Maiden stabilized her turbulent emotions and muttered in her heart, this fellow's name seems to be Dustless. Where did he get his charisma from to make Sister Rong do this for him? I really don't understand. In reality, even Dustless himself was confused, let alone the Snow Maiden. He didn't know why Duanmu Rong would be so generous as to guarantee him and even use her life as a guarantee. Alright, I can believe you for now. After a moment of silence, the Snow Maiden nodded in agreement. Her cold tone also relaxed, and she reluctantly acknowledged Dustless. Duanmu Rong changed the topic and asked curiously, speaking of which, did you come to find me because of the internal problems of the Mo family? Normally, only she and you, lived on this isolated island. Most people who came here were here to treat their illnesses. On the other hand, the Snow Maiden's face was rosy, and her eyes were bright. She didn't look haggard at all. Sister Roan, you know about the Chu family, right? They will send a patient here for you to treat. However, the Mirror Lake Clinic's location is special, and they need a disciple of the Mo family to bring them here. Hence, this task fell on me. I see. Hearing this, Dustless came to a realization and asked calmly, is that patient's surname Gu? You know. The Snow Maiden looked at Dustless in surprise and then nodded in agreement. If that's the case, then it explains why Qi Lian attacked us. Dustless organized his thoughts and said, Sword Saint Gunia is from the Ghost Valley. This strange sect only accepts 2 disciples, one vertical and one horizontal. They are at odds with each other. Gunia's junior brother is the current leader of Quicksand, Wei Zhuang. Dustless recalled his memories and explained why Qi Lian had attacked them. Perhaps Wei Zhuang knew about Gunia's relationship with the Mo family, so he sent people to assassinate them. Sword Saint Gunia. Duanmu Rong's expression immediately turned cold, and she said impatiently, Gunia is from the Qin kingdom, and he has the title of Sword Saint. He must be an expert swordsman, and his surname is Gu. He has all 3 of my nose. No matter what, I will not save this person. As soon as she finished speaking, Duanmu Rong carried the unconscious Yu, and left. It seemed like she had returned to the Mirror Lake Clinic. This woman has quite a personality. Her temper is very strange. However, I also use swords, so why did she save me? Could it be that she couldn't tell? Wu Chen stroked his chin and couldn't figure it out no matter how much he thought about it. Then, he followed behind. Stop right there. Just as he was about to leave, Dustless suddenly felt someone tugging at the corner of his shirt. He frowned and turned to look, and his face was filled with surprise. Miss Snow Maiden, a man and a woman are alone in the same place. Why are you tugging at me like this? It won't be good if others see this. Although I don't have much of a reputation, I still care about my reputation. Dustless looked at the Snow Maiden with disdain. Countless crows flitted across her forehead. Why is this guy asking for a beating? The Snow Maiden clenched her fists. If she hadn't suddenly thought of a plan to ask for help from Dustless, she definitely wouldn't have minded sparring with Dustless. Chapter 1788. Something doesn't seem right. This guy is actually holding himself back. Dustless's face was full of surprise. He looked at the Snow Lady, who seemed to be hiding something, and said deliberately, Miss Snow Lady, if there's nothing else, I will take my leave. After he finished speaking, Wu Chen left the Snow Lady with his back view. Wait, why are you in such a hurry? I'm not from the state of Qin. Snow Lady moved lightly and quickly walked in front of Wu Chen. She opened her arms wide and blocked his path. The Qin kingdom's people you speak of are as scary as wolves and tigers. Dustless rubbed his nose and decided to get straight to the point. He asked, a straightforward person does not do underhanded things. What does Miss Snow Lady want from me? This, after a moment of silence, the Snow Lady gritted her teeth and said, I hope that you can persuade Sister Rong to save Gunya. Save Gunya. Dustless looked as if he had seen a ghost. He could understand if it was someone else begging him, but it was the Snow Lady. However, it was the Snow Lady. This was unbelievable. If I remember correctly, it was Gunya who killed Jing Ku. The Snow Lady, Gao Jianli, and Jing Ku were close friends. Now, the Snow Lady is asking Duanmu Rong to save Gunya. Dustless felt dizzy as he looked at the Snow Lady suspiciously. This person was too magnanimous. She was even willing to save her own enemy. This is Juzi's order. I was only sent here to persuade him. Actually, I hate Gunya. No, I should say that everyone in Mechanical City hates Gunya. If he had not stopped us, Ingzheng would have been assassinated by Big Brother Jingku. The Snow Lady's voice was as soft as a mosquito's, and her eyes were filled with tears. The giant knows that Gunya is a top-notch expert. He wants Miss Duanmurong to save him because he wants Gunya to be on the same side as him against the Qin kingdom. I'm afraid that this is his plan. For the Sword Saint Gunya, the giant is willing to sacrifice some people's feelings. Dustless's mind was waning, and he had no interest in this. In this world, the person that Dustless hated the most was not the current emperor, Ingzheng, nor was it Wei Zhuang from Quicksand, but the current great son of Mo clan, Yen Dan. For the sake of saving the world, he abandoned his wife and daughter. This kind of person is really hard to like. Dustless raised his head and looked up into the sky, sighing. He was rather fed up with this so-called tycoon. He always felt that Yen Dan was a weirdo, and even had water in his brain. He could not even give his own wife and daughter happiness, yet he had to say that he wanted to save all living things. It was too childish. I can try, but what benefits will I get? Dustless changed the topic and stared at the Snow Lady as he bargained. He would never do something that did not benefit him. Benefits? The Snow Maiden was stunned for a moment when she heard this. Chapter 1789. Speaking of which, Miss Snow Lady, I have a question that I've always wanted to ask you. Faint ripples appeared on the quiet lake. Dustless and the Snow Lady sat opposite each other in the boat that was only big enough for a few people to pass through. The one who spoke was Dustless. Do you think there's an elixir of immortality in this world? Dustless stared into the Snow Lady's eyes and asked in a melancholy manner. There was an unconcealable desire in his voice. You believe in that kind of thing? The Snow Lady giggled. She looked extremely beautiful as she said disdainfully, I didn't expect you to be so childish. You even believe in those groundless legends. It seems like I've overestimated you. Legends? Dustless smiled and didn't say anything. He closed his eyes again and muttered to himself, so-called legends are ultimately evolved from history. Their existence was reasonable, and some legends weren't as far-fetched as people thought. I hope that Yun Zhongjuan won't disappoint me. Not only Ingzheng, but I also have high hopes for you. The elixir of immortality is really something that people yearn for. You'd better give me a few thousand. Dustless's face was full of hope. He had the body of 10 tails and was immortal. However, the women and the system were different. Sooner or later, they would die. If he could get a few thousand elixirs of immortality, Dustless's last worry would be solved. Meanwhile, in another direction. In the wilderness where no one cared about, the panicked neighs of horses resounded through the sky. They were running at full speed, kicking up a huge cloud of dust behind them. Howl! 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 Behind the carriage, amidst the smoke and dust, countless green eyes swept around, emitting a glint that seemed to want to devour people. It wasn't just a few, but dozens, or even hundreds of them. This pack of hungry wolves was chasing after the fleeing carriage without stopping. This is bad. We've been targeted by this pack of hungry wolves. Inside the carriage, a few figures had heavy expressions, and the atmosphere was extremely solemn and oppressive. Everyone looked at each other in silence, and they didn't know what to do. These people were none other than Sword Saint Gunia, as well as members of the Xiong clan who had just left the country. Tianming and Xiaoyu were among them as well. At this moment, the two youths were in no mood to play around. Their caravan had already been surrounded, and they were in a perilous situation. Grey Wolf King, one of the 4 heavenly kings of Quicksand. This person is solitary and cruel, wild and persevering. He lives with wolves and likes to move in the dark. He always wore half of the green eye mask and had the same night vision as a wolf. Its weapon is the wolf Fong bronze claw. The pale-faced middle-aged man introduced himself. This person was Gunia. If it was in the past, Guneo would have been able to deal with this situation by himself. However, things were different now. When he had led Tianming to escape from the Great Qin's soldiers, Guneo was covered in wounds and had suffered fatal injuries. It was already a miracle that he was still able to stay awake and stabilize his consciousness. "Uncle, will we all die here?" Tianming blinked his eyes and asked. His tone was filled with dejection. Bang! Xiaoyu smacked Tianming on the head and cursed, "Boy, do you even know how to speak properly? Even if you're not strong enough, at least say something courageous to cheer everyone up." "Anne, I don't plan to die here." Xiaoyu's eyes were like torches. Facing the hungry wolves, not only was he not afraid, but he was also filled with fighting spirit. This was especially so when he saw the black figure disappear in the blink of an eye. "Xiaoyu, don't act rashly. That guy is the Grey Wolf King. With your current strength, it will be difficult for you to fight against him," an old man with white hair and beard advised. This man was wearing a purple robe, and his eyes were sharp and shrewd. He looked like a cunning old fox. His name was Fanzeng, and he was Xiaoyu's teacher. "I've already sent someone to inform the Mahist family. I'm afraid that reinforcements are on the way. There's no need to tangle with the Grey Wolf King. Using your own disadvantage against the enemy's advantage is a great taboo. Master Fan, you're worrying too much. The Mahist family's reinforcements are nowhere in sight. Who knows, we might become the weakest souls of these hungry wolves before they arrive." Xiaoyu expressed a different opinion. At the same time, he patted Tianming's shoulder and said, "Boy, you think so too, right? Are you willing to fight that stinky wolf with me?" "Me?" Tianming shrunk his neck and instinctively put some distance between him and Xiaoyu. "You're useless." Seeing this, Xiaoyu rolled her eyes and glared at Tianming, cursing him inwardly. She then climbed out of the carriage but was stopped by a voice. "Listen carefully." The wolf howls outside seemed to have suddenly disappeared. Master Fan's eyes shone. He had a deep impression of the heart-wrenching wolf howls. It really seems to have stopped. Guneo was silent for a moment, then nodded lightly. His stiff face relaxed slightly. Could it be that the Grey Wolf King has retreated? Seeing that we're about to become his meal, he has no reason to retreat. "You're right." Everyone nodded their heads in puzzlement. "What's the point of worrying about this? Let's go out and take a look." Xiaoyu pulled open the curtain and jumped to the top of the carriage. To his surprise, he saw a thin figure standing on top of the carriage like a ghost. The person had arrived earlier than him. "You're Xiaoyu." "Not bad. Very agile," the mysterious man praised. "Who are you? Why are you standing on top of our carriage?" Xiangyu asked warily. He looked around with an ugly expression. When he saw the tragic scene, he asked, "Did you do all this?" "My name is Dushless. As for these guys, I just killed them." The corpses were piled up like a mountain. Chapter 1790. How did he do it? Sorcery. The corners of Xiaoyu's eyes twitched as he looked at the corpses of the wolves. His heart was filled with shock and confusion. A minute ago, the howls of the wolves were still echoing outside the carriage. Now, a minute later, the ground was covered with the corpses of the wolves. What was even more unbelievable was that they did not even hear any sounds of fighting. It seems like they were killed by the shockwave. Xiaoyu jumped to the ground and checked the corpses. His eyes widened when he saw the incredible wounds on the bodies. There are no wounds. Their eardrums burst, their eyeballs exploded, and their hearts were shattered. Could it be that they were killed by internal force? How is that possible? Is there anyone in the world who has such strong internal force? This kid, Dustless, who had sharp ears, heard Xiao Yu's thoughts and gave him a look of admiration. He laughed in his heart. They were indeed killed by the shockwave. It's a pity that they were killed by Haoshiku. This. Who did this? What a strange way to die. At the same time, Gunia and the others got out of the carriage. They were puzzled when they saw the corpses on the ground. They were especially puzzled by the strange wounds on the bodies. To be able to kill so many wolves without making a sound, Gunia's eyes widened. He could not hide his shock. At the same time, he was filled with fear. The wolves had been killed in an instant, and the people in the carriage had not felt anything. This was enough to prove that the person behind the scenes could have used the same method to kill them. Who on earth is this person? Everyone present was not an ordinary person. They were all knowledgeable people and could tell that something was not right. Of course, there was one exception, Tianming. Why are you still standing here? I heard that there is a patient here. Gunya and the others were slightly taken aback when they heard the celestial voice. They looked towards the source of the voice and saw a beautiful figure with silver hair dancing in the wind. Miss Snow, Master Fan and Xiao Yu were obviously familiar with this person. They all greeted her with cupped fists. As for Gunya, he did not say anything. He could clearly see the hostility in Snow Girl's eyes, but he also cupped his fists as a greeting. This was basic etiquette. Thank you, Mo clan, for saving us. The Xiong clan will never forget your kindness. As a senior, Master Fan expressed his sincere thanks. If it weren't for the Snow Lady and the others, they might have died here and become food for the wolves. If you want to thank someone, thank him. She pointed at Dustless and said, he was the one who saved you this time. It has nothing to do with the Mo family. Not from the Mo family. Everyone's gaze looked towards Dustless, all revealing astonished looks. This person is so young. After staring at Dustless for a while longer, Xiao Yu, Gunia, and the others all had the same thought. Ignoring his actual age, just from his appearance alone, they could tell that he was about 17 or 18 years old, but his strength was not to be underestimated. Your Excellency is so generous to help us. The Xiong clan of Chu will definitely remember this. Master Fan bowed slightly to express his gratitude. There's no need to thank me. This is just a transaction. Shaking his head, Dustless fixed his gaze on the drifting shadow in the distance and said, besides, it's too early to say thanks. There's still a culprit lurking in the dark. Hearing this, everyone was stunned, and they all frowned. There's indeed one person missing. Everyone, be careful. Gunio looked around thoughtfully, and then his eyes suddenly narrowed. One of the 4 heavenly kings of quicksand, the Ash Wolf King, is still lurking in the dark. No, you're wrong. Sword Saint Gunia. I'm right beside you. A sinister voice suddenly sounded in the air. It was as cold as the wind of death, and it was filled with a hint of decay and madness. Swish. 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 Suddenly, a cold shadow appeared behind the Snow Lady, its sharp claws flickering with a deadly cold light. Since the Mo family dared to interfere with my business, I'll use you as a sacrifice to those wolf souls. The black shadow, which shone with an oily green light, said hatefully. Because the Mo family had suddenly interfered, they had suffered heavy losses. The Ash Wolf King would hold a grudge against the Mo family. Swish. 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 It swung its right arm, its sharp claws grabbing at the Snow Lady's neck. Humph, how comical. Just as the sharp, cold light was about to pierce through the Snow Lady, a ripple of energy suddenly appeared in the cold air. A golden, cold light that could be seen with the naked eye sliced through the Ash Wolf King's body. Poochie. The Ash Wolf King's right arm, which had reached out to grab the Snow Lady, was instantly crushed by this attack. So fast. Gunya muttered in shock. Even he had only seen a blur for an instant. By the time he had reacted, the Ash Wolf King had already been killed. Oh! My hand! A shrill, pitiful cry reverberated through the air. That roar of despair caused goosebumps to appear on everyone's skin. He's just an abandoned pawn, yet he still dares to come out and fight. I really don't know where his confidence comes from. This guy actually sneak attacked me. The Snow Lady turned her head and glanced at the Ash Wolf King. When she saw his pained expression, she smiled coldly and looked at Dustless. Just as she was about to thank him, Dustless spoke first. Dustless, who was wielding the heavenly sword of clouds, slowly walked over. He looked at the Snow Lady, who was unharmed, and said, "Fortunately, you're fine. Otherwise, no one would be able to repay my debt. This guy. Damn it." Chapter 1791. So powerful, Xiao Yu's eyes lit up. Tianming, on the other hand, was terrified as he looked at the hand that had fallen to the ground. He quickly hid behind Gunya. Ha 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 ha, Xiao Yu laughed heartily. Kid, aren't you the only successor of the Sword Saint? Are you so scared that you peed your pants? Nonsense, I'm not scared. Tianming's face changed drastically when he heard that. He stood out decisively and began to verbally attack Xiao Yu without holding back. These two guys, Dustless shook his head. He looked coldly at Ash Wolf King and said, "You don't seem to have any last words. Since that's the case, you can die peacefully. In your dreams." A fierce light flashed across Grey Wolf King's face when he heard that. He glared at Wu Chen viciously, but he wanted to retreat in his heart. He didn't want to die here. Recklessly challenging Wu Chen was tantamount to setting himself on fire. I'm no match for him. Especially now that I've lost an arm, my strength is greatly reduced. Ash Wolf King knew that he could not defeat Dustless. Hence, he continued to glare at Dustless. However, the green light in his eyes was circling around the others. It's this silly kid. Ash Wolf King's gaze finally landed on Tianming. This kid looked the weakest and was the most suitable target. He would capture him and use him to threaten Dustless. Although the plan was good, he was destined to lose his chance. Swish swish swish. At this moment, a huge beam of light shot out. This guy can shoot out beams of light. Xiao Yu, Gunya, and the others were all stunned, including the Snow Maiden. When they saw the straight ray of light, they were all astonished. They had never seen Wu Chen's technique before, and it was completely new to them. No one in the world had ever used such a pure and fast technique. It was as simple and crude as using inner strength to attack. Xing Hun's Qi blade has a similar effect. Gunya could not help but think that Dustless was from the school of Yin Yang. So fast. Sensing the incoming attack, the Ash Wolf King's face was filled with fear as it hurriedly dodged to the side. Swish. Swish. The Ash Wolf King made a prompt decision. His entire body turned into a black shadow as he retreated. His speed was extremely fast, but it was useless. His speed was very fast, but the speed of the light was even faster. Puchi. In the end, the Ash Wolf King's head was pierced through, leaving behind a glaring wound. Plop. With its brain destroyed, the Ash Wolf King became a spent force. In the end, it fell to the ground unwillingly. This guy defeated Flowing Sand's Qi Lian, and now he has killed the Ash Wolf King. This means that he has formed a death grudge with Wei Zhuang's Flowing Sand. The Snow Lady's eyes glowed, and no one knew what she was plotting. Dustless's strength is out of the ordinary. Furthermore, he doesn't belong to any faction. We can totally pull him into the Mo family. With his ability, he's too suitable to be a fighter. The Snow Lady squinted her eyes, and the way she looked at Dustless also changed. Your injuries are very serious. I'll treat you here. Dustless suddenly spoke calmly as he looked at Gunia. The others were fine, but the Snow Lady frowned deeply. Sister Rong is still in the Mirror Lake Clinic. How are we going to treat Gunia? The Snow Lady asked curiously. When she mentioned Gunia's name, her beautiful face was filled with coldness and unconcealable disgust. Hey, you bad woman, watch your tone. Tianming was instantly displeased. Although he wasn't very smart, everyone could hear the Snow Lady's undisguised disgust. Tianming, don't be rude. Gunia frowned as he looked at Tianming, then pulled him back. He didn't care about the Snow Lady's disgust. In this world, there were too many people who hated him. There was no need to care. Miss Duanmu is indeed not here, but there's still me. Lifting his thumb, Wu Chen calmly pointed at himself and replied indifferently, although I can't do anything about the poison, and I don't have inner strength to force the poison out, this kind of external injury is just a small problem for me. Miss Snow Girl, you only need to remember that you owe me a favor. You? The Snow Lady's eyes widened when she heard this, and her mouth opened slightly. After a moment of shock, she said, You're saying that you also know medicine. Medicine? Dustless shook his head. Medicine was broad and profound, and he didn't know much about it. However, he had more convenient and faster medical ninjutsu, and he could use Chakra's cheating ability to treat Gunia's injuries. Medicine encompassed everything. Apart from the most basic treatment, there was also the complicated side profession of alchemy. For example, Dustless didn't know how to refine the 100-herb pill that Duanmu Rong had refined herself. However, this wasn't important. Although Dustless only knew a little about medical ninjutsu, Gunia's injuries were nothing to him. I can't thank you enough. Thank you, you don't need to thank me. I was only asked to do this. I've already said before that this is just a transaction. Dustless waved his hand, indicating that Gunia didn't need to thank him. After treating Gunia, the Snow Lady would owe Dustless a favor. Furthermore, she would have to agree to all of his requests. Dustless didn't feel like he was losing anything. Damn it, I was tricked by this guy again. What a hateful guy. The Snow Lady snapped out of her daze and stomped her feet angrily. She had unknowingly been tricked by Dustless. What made her even more speechless was that after being tricked, she still thought that she had profited. She was a classic example of being tricked and counting the money. Chapter 1792. At this point, the Snow Lady had nothing to say. She had already agreed to Dustless's conditions, and there was no point in going back on her word. Moreover, the scene before them was no different from before. The biggest difference was that Duanmu Rong, who was supposed to treat Gunia, was now Dustless. Hey, are you sure you can save Uncle? Tianming patted Dustless's shoulder and asked with his hands on his hips, You're only a few years older than me. Do you really have the ability to save Uncle? Who knows? Maybe I really can't save him, and I might even cause your uncle's death. Dustless had a mocking look on his face as he said, A doctor who saves people can become a doctor who kills people with poisons if he's not careful. You, Tianming pointed a trembling finger at Dustless as he approached Gunia and said, Uncle, let's get someone else to treat you. Look at this guy's evil smile. He might be an assassin sent by Yingjing to harm us. Tianming, if this senior wanted to harm us, he could have just stood by and watched. We would have been killed by the Ash Wolf King in no time at all. There was no need for him to come out and do something like this. Gunia's voice was a little hoarse, and his face was as pale as a sheet. He looked like he was nearing the end of his life. Say. Senior. Hearing this strange address, everyone was stunned. They stared at Wu Qin in astonishment. Inside their minds, there was a great earthquake, and their thoughts were in a mess. In the pugilistic world, Gunia is known as the sword sage, and he actually called this guy senior. This guy is probably only a few years older than Xiaoyu, but Gunia called him senior. The snow lady stared at Dustless blankly, her eyes shining brightly. Although she hated Gunia, he was the one who had killed Jingku. From this, she could see how powerful Gunia was. His title of Sword Sage was definitely not baseless. Even so, he still called Dustless senior. Everyone was confused. Either Gunia was retarded, or Dustless's power had reached an unfathomable level. "Uncle, this guy is only a few years older than me." Tianming pointed at the calm Dustless and said, "That must have been luck." "Idiot, don't you know that luck is also a part of strength?" Xiaoyu took the opportunity to attack Tianming, but in reality, he was also quite shocked. When he heard this, Gunya smiled and said, "Tianming, the geniuses of this world are existences that ordinary people cannot comprehend. Before I left the Qin kingdom, Xing Hun, one of the two guardian sorcerers of the empire, was rumored to be less than 15 years old, but he was strong enough to go head-to-head with me." Cough, cough, cough. Dustless awkwardly coughed twice, and his old face couldn't help but turn red. It was really embarrassing to be looked down upon like this. If he was really in his teens, then it would be fine. But in reality, his real age was already more than a few hundred years old. It was really embarrassing to be looked down upon as a young talent. "Let's stop here. The rest of you, stand outside. Gunia and I will enter the carriage." Dustless called out and immediately walked towards the carriage. "It's one thing for the Ash Wolf King to be killed, but even you have failed. Besides Gunia, is there anyone else who wants to go against us? I took on this boring task out of interest, but the result was unexpected." About 4 hours later, around dusk, several figures appeared on the battlefield where Gunia's group and Old Wang's group had fought. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A bone-chilling wind swept through the area, and dry white hair danced in the wind. A tall man in a black brocade robe stood between the heavens and the earth. His cold eyes were filled with disdain. "Lord Wei Zhuang." The subordinates behind the white-haired man greeted him respectfully. At first, things were going smoothly. But who would have thought that the situation would take a turn for the worse? A man called Dustless appeared. "That guy is very powerful, and his moves are very strange. I have never seen anything like him before." The graceful woman, who was exceptionally beautiful, had an enchanting temperament, and whose every move was full of charm, sighed and said in disappointment, "If it wasn't for Duanmu Rong's snake venom, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to come back and would have been captured alive by Wu Qin." This woman with a somewhat dejected expression was precisely Qi Lian, whom Dustless fought with previously. What a despicable man. Qi Lian gritted her teeth and swore to herself that the next time she met Dustless, she would fight him to the death. At the same time, she looked at Wei Zhuang worriedly, afraid that he would be angry. Qi Lian had only failed a handful of missions in the past, and almost all of them had been successful. Moreover, even if she had failed, she would have been able to leave unscathed. This time, she had almost been captured alive. Dustless. Wei Zhuang's calm eyes rippled. Even though he was as calm as an ancient well, and his expression did not change at all, Quicksand subordinates could see that he was surprised. In Quicksand, Qi Lian's strength could only be considered average. She was below Wei Zhuang and Bai Feng, but her strength was above Grey Wolf King and Hidden Bat. But now, Qi Lian had said that she had almost been captured alive. This meant that the other party's strength was overwhelming, and he was comparable to Wei Zhuang. This matter is getting more and more interesting. The corners of Wei Zhuang's mouth curled into a faint smile. After pausing for a moment, Wei Zhuang left with his head held high. He was heading towards Mahist's mechanical city. At the same time, Dustless had finished treating Gunia. However, the effects of medical ninjutsu were simply too heaven-defying. He could heal Gunia almost instantly, but in order to keep a low profile, Dustless deliberately slowed down the speed of his recovery. However, compared to ordinary medical ninjutsu, it was still incredibly fast. 2 hours after the treatment, Gunia was still injured, but his face had regained some color. They looked as if the sky was falling. The two of them took the initiative to distance themselves from Duanmu Rong and Dustless, afraid that they would be implicated. Sister Rong, Miss Duanmu is going to kill someone. The Snow Lady and Master Ban couldn't help but sympathize with Dustless. Everyone in the Mo clan knew that Duanmu Rong was the #1 iceberg. Although she was kind to the Mo clan, everyone knew that she was cold. Dustless's rash actions were like setting himself on fire. Dustless was so frivolous toward Duanmu Rong. Master Ban and the Snow Lady were sure that this iceberg was going to turn into a volcano. Chapter 1794. This guy really dares to take advantage of anyone. Xiaoyu and the other members of the Xiong clan felt a chill run down their spines. Although they had never met Duanmu Rong before, this icy beauty's reputation had spread far and wide. As allies of the Mo clan, Xiaoyu and the other members of the Xiong clan had heard of her. Without exception, they all imitated Master Ban and the others and took a few steps back. It doesn't seem like a fever. The atmosphere was stiff for a moment. Dustless found it strange, but he didn't pay it much mind. He withdrew his right hand and frowned. Could it be that your snake venom has relapsed? You're underestimating me. Duanmu Rong looked straight at Dustless. Seeing his calm eyes, she snorted and turned to leave. Really, why does this woman look like she ate gunpowder? She's so angry. Dustless was speechless. He just wanted to see if Duanmu Rong had a fever or some other illness. He didn't have any ill intentions. Miss Duanmu, please wait for me. Dustless hurried after her, not forgetting to shout, if the venom hasn't been completely removed, just say the word and this one will be willing to die for you. The Snow Woman and Old Man Ban were both dumbstruck as they watched Duanmu Rong leave with Wu Qin. The two of them stared at each other, catching the shock in each other's eyes. Old Ban, are my eyes playing tricks on me? After a moment of silence, Snow Maiden took the initiative to approach Old Ban. It's a miracle that Sister Rong didn't beat him up. Who knows? Old Ban stroked his beard and shook his head. A woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea. The most complicated thing in the world is not the most sophisticated mechanism, but a woman's heart. Old Ban was so emotional that he had even put away his kitchen knife, afraid that Duanmu Rong would chop Dustless to death. But reality had given him a slap in the face. Duanmu Rong wasn't angry. Please come in. Old Ban couldn't be bothered to think about these trivial matters. He began to greet the other guests, especially Gunia. Although Gunia had a grudge against the Mo clan, Juzi had ordered the Mo clan to treat Gunia well. Even though Old Ban was dissatisfied, he could only swallow his anger. In order to survive in this chaotic world, only by knowing how to endure patiently would one be able to accumulate strength and soar to the heavens in the end. Greetings, Master Ban. The people from the Xiong clan of Chu were obviously much more familiar with Old Ban. They were smiling in a relaxed manner. It wasn't hard to see that they had a lot of dealings with each other. Why is Miss Duanmu so angry? Did I do something wrong? Dustless, who felt wronged, said gloomily, there's a saying that it's the greatest virtue to be able to correct your mistakes. Even if I've done something wrong, why don't you tell me? What's wrong with Gunia? I heard that he was injured, but why was there no sign at all? Although that fellow's complexion is slightly pale, his complexion is vigorous, and his footsteps are steady and vigorous. He's clearly fine. Duanmu Rong said coldly. This, you saw through it. As expected of the medical sage, Dustless did not try to hide it any longer. He said, "Miss Duanmu, why do you care about such things? Everyone's fate is secretly determined by the heavens. Gunia is not destined to die. Furthermore, if there's anyone to blame for this, I personally feel that you should be the one to blame." Duanmu Rong was speechless. She had heard the reason for Gunia's appearance from Master Ban. The Mo clan's great master wanted to borrow Gunia's strength to deal with Yingjing. Thus, even though they were enemies in the past, they were now on the same side. "You were the one who treated that fellow's injuries?" After hearing Dustless's words, Duanmu Rong's complaints were greatly reduced. She looked at Dustless in surprise. "I didn't know that you were hiding something." Dustless smiled lightly and said frankly, "In the pugilistic world, it's easy to dodge a spear in the open, but hard to avoid a stab in the dark. Injuries are inevitable. Learn more skills to protect yourself, and your life will be more secure." "You're smart." Duanmu Rong agreed with Dustless's thoughts. Then, she said with lingering fear, "Thank you for what you did before. If it weren't for you, you and I would have been in the underworld." "That's not important." Dustless shook his head. Just as he was about to speak, Duanmu Rong's voice rang out once again. "There's news that Lu Sha and the Qin Kingdom have joined forces and are targeting the Mo clan. The enemy is coming at us aggressively. This place is no longer suitable for setting up camp. Our whereabouts have been exposed. I plan to leave this place immediately." As soon as she finished speaking, Duanmu Rong looked at Dustless, as if she was trying to find a way for Dustless to leave. "Go to Mechanical City." When Dustless heard this, his eyes lit up. After coming to this world, he still had two things to collect. One was the Yellowstone Heavenly Book, which seemed to be in the hands of Chu Nangong. The other was the 7 lunar mansions of the Azure Dragon. Dustless did not know where they were at the moment. However, the Mo clan had an important item related to the 7 lunar mansions of the Azure Dragon, the phantasmal sound treasure box. Dustless was determined to get this item. It was also the key to unlocking the secret of the 7 lunar mansions of the Azure Dragon. "Miss Duanmu, to be honest," after sorting out his thoughts, Dustless said desolately, "My clan was annihilated by Yingjing. I am absolutely irreconcilable with the entire Qin Kingdom. I also wish to participate in the plan to deal with the Qin Kingdom led by the Mo clan." "Is that so?" "Yingjing is indeed the source of all the disasters in the world. In the end, justice will eradicate the villains of Yingjing," Duanmu Rong said bitterly. At the same time, she nodded in agreement with Dustless. "Thank you, Miss Duanmu." When Dustless heard this, he smiled faintly. Of course, this sad family story was made up by him. Who was good and who was bad was not important to Dustless. Both sides had their own opinions and felt that they were right. In the eyes of Yingjing, the Mo clan and the 100 schools of thought were malignant tumors that ruined the empire. They had to be eradicated. In the eyes of the 100 schools of thought, Yingjing was a heartless butcher that everyone had the right to kill. In fact, in Dustless's opinion, both sides had their own reasons. It was just that their standpoints were different. There was no such thing as good or evil. The winner was justice. Chapter 1795. Phew. It's a success to sneak into Mo clan's Mechanical City. Dustless heaved a sigh of relief and started to change the topic. Speaking of which, Mo clan has a lot of potential allies. Confucianism, Taoism, Xiong clan, all in all, most of the anti-Qin forces were related to Mo clan. The evils we bring upon ourselves are the hardest to bear. It's not that we have a lot of like-minded people, it's just that Yingjing has offended too many people. Duanmu Rong's lips curled up slightly. She was very happy to see Yingjing suffer. Dustless smiled but did not say anything. Perhaps Ingzhang was not a good person and had angered everyone. Even if he was defeated and killed in the future, who would be the next emperor? Who could be sure that they would do a better job than Ingzhang? All of these were floating question marks. Therefore, Dustless also didn't want to participate in it. The matters of these sects were the most troublesome and irritating. Obviously, both sides weren't good people, yet they insisted on hanging the so-called justice and punishing evil and speaking good words in their mouths. Of course, it was still possible to use the power of Mo clan to find the Yellowstone Heavenly Book and the 7 Mansions of Azure Dragon. Grumble. At this moment, Dustless's stomach grumbled uncooperatively. He scratched his head awkwardly and smiled embarrassedly. Your appetite is ridiculous. Duanmu Rong rolled her eyes. It was rare for Duanmu Rong to roll her eyes. She glanced at Dustless and left directly. It seemed like she was going to make lunch. Really, cold on the outside but warm on the inside. She seems to be tough but soft. She's just like the rumors. And she's so good at pretending. What a dishonest woman. Dustless's lips curled up into a faint smile. At this moment, he suddenly felt a hand grabbing him. He turned around and frowned when he saw the person. Kid, staring at the young man who was half a body shorter than him, Dustless asked, "Why are you looking for me? I remember that you dislike me a lot." Hee. Of course not. The young man's eyes narrowed into crescents. He quickly denied, "Other than uncle, you're my second idol." This person was Tianming. Your second idol? I'm really shocked. Dustless pretended to be surprised and looked at Tianming. Out of curiosity, he asked, "One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. Boy, what do you want from me?" Ha 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 ha. Tianming laughed even more happily when he heard this. "Can you teach me your skill of shooting out light?" Sure enough, he's a kid who likes to dream. Dustless shook his head and looked at Tianming, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. You're not suited for martial arts. Compared to martial arts, you're more suited to be a comedian. The so-called skill of shooting light was actually the ability of the glint fruit. It was impossible for it to be given to others. Tianming wanting to learn it was no different from a fool's dream. Go and learn swordsmanship from your uncle. Dustless patted Tianming's head and walked past him. Humph, stingy. Tianming groaned unhappily as he complained with great dissatisfaction. You're really a kid who likes to dream. Do you think you can learn it just because you want to? Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. At the same time, he murmured, the jade pendant hanging around that kid's neck is really extraordinary. Where did it come from? Dustless still remembered that in the original work, many people felt that the jade pendant hanging around Tianming's neck was strange. When he took a closer look, Dustless also found that it was different. Although it was an item of the mortal world, it had an indescribable ethereal aura and an extraordinary immortal charm. Ha ha, a malicious laughter came from the front again. Dustless frowned slightly. Tianming, I said I won't teach you, so it's Master Ban. He raised his head and saw that the person who came into view was not Tianming, but Master Ban, an expert of the Mo family, who was proficient in mechanism techniques. Master, what's the matter? Dustless looked at the smiling old man in surprise. He didn't remember having any friendship with him. To put it bluntly, they had only met once, and they hadn't even spoken much to each other. Mr. Dustless, calling me to master is too much for this old man. Just call me Old Man Ban. It makes me feel better. Old Man Ban sincerely hoped that Dustless would change his way of addressing him. It felt strange to be called Big Hand by an expert. Well, Old Man Ban, why are you looking for me? Could it be that you also want to ask about my background? Dustless nodded and said, I don't belong to any sect. I'm just a passerby in the mortal world. I have no power or influence, so there's nothing worth investigating. Mr. Dustless is too modest. Nobles and generals are all the same. Old Man Ban waved his hand. He had heard from the Snow Girls and Duanmu Rong that Dustless was strangely powerful. Even if he was really immortal, his strength couldn't be underestimated. Would you like to join the House of Moism? Old Man Ban's eyes lit up as he stated his bargaining chip. The House of Moism still lacks a leader. You are the perfect person to take on this task. Join the House of Moism. Hearing this, Dustless fell silent. There was some resistance in his heart. The House of Moism's doctrine was to love all beings with impartiality. It really didn't suit someone like Dustless. On the contrary, the teachings of the school of Yin-Yang and the school of Taoism were more suitable for him. I once swore that I wouldn't join any faction. After pondering for a while, Dustless decisively refused. However, if the House of Moism needs my help, I'm willing to do something within my power. Of course, this condition was limited to Duanmu Rong. After all, she had helped Dustless, so it was only natural for her to repay a little. Is that so? That's good. Hearing this, Old Man Ban stroked his white beard. Although he was dissatisfied with Dustless's refusal, he had heard the answer he wanted. This place has been spied on by the Qin Kingdom's lackey, Quicksand. It's not safe anymore. Would you like to go to Mechanical City with me? Old Man Ban asked expectantly. The House of Moism's Mechanical City has been used by the people of the world. I'd be more than happy to see it. Dustless didn't even think about it before agreeing. Just then, something strange happened. Chapter 1796. White feathers rained down from the blue sky. There were so many of them that they covered the entire sky. They drifted down from the clear sky onto the tranquil lake before finally disappearing. This is... How can it snow on such a clear day? What the hell is this? A goose feather. Old Man Ban grabbed a fluffy feather and sniffed it a few times. After muttering to himself for a while, he muttered with a blank expression, "It doesn't smell like a goose feather. It doesn't have the unique smell of a goose. Instead, it smells noble and elegant. Damn it, when did animals become so clean? Could it be a duck feather?" Old Ban's eyes lit up. I remember that there were many wild ducks around the lake. They would come out every summer. Now is the time for them to be active. This old man. Sometimes, his thoughts really jump around. Dustless stared speechlessly at Old Ban. He also grabbed a feather and frowned. This isn't a goose feather or a duck feather. If I'm not wrong, it should be the wing of a bird. A bird? Old Ban was stunned. He looked up at the sky and said suspiciously, "There are thousands of feathers in the sky. How can there be such a big bird? Also, this isn't the habitat of migratory birds. Such an abnormality can only mean one thing." Crack, crack, crack. Energy surged in his palm, shattering the feather. Dustless's expression turned solemn. In Wei Zhuang's quicksand, there's an expert who's good at controlling birds, by phone. That's right. I know this person. Gunia and the others walked out of the wooden hut. They were also confused by the fluffy fur that filled the entire sky. It was as majestic as a snowstorm. Legend has it that Baifeng is as handsome as Jade. His lightness skills are unparalleled, and his strength is rarely seen in the world. It's said that within quicksand, his strength is second only to Wei Zhuang's. Gunia's tone was heavy and solemn. Although Dustless had healed him, he hadn't fully recovered. He still needed some time to recuperate. His fighting strength wasn't at its peak yet. But then again, how did he find this place? Xiaoyu's master, Master Fan, asked in confusion. Only the disciples of the school of Moism know the route to Miss Duanmu's Mirror Lake Medical Manor. Why did the enemy come so quickly? It's probably because of Qi Lian. That fellow was repelled by me. She must have investigated the terrain here before and is probably very familiar with it. There's a high chance that she was the one who informed by phone. Dustless guessed. Duanmu Rong also walked out of the kitchen and looked at the goose feathers in the sky with caution. These wolves are relentless in their pursuit. Old Man Ban sighed with an apologetic expression. Originally, I was planning to entertain my guests and treat them to a feast. But now, it seems that I have no choice but to return to the Mahish clan's mechanical city for the time being. Everyone gently nodded in agreement with Old Ban's approach. The Drifting Sands and Great Qin had joined hands, and it was rumored that Yingzheng had even sent many of his elite iron-armored army to Weizhuang. Perhaps it was just by phone now, but if things continued to drag on, it would eventually be the entire iron cavalry of Great Qin Empire. Ao ao ao. A sharp cry resounded through the sky, and the originally clear sky instantly darkened. Everyone looked up and was stunned. Look at the sky. What's that? Hearing this, everyone looked up at the vast sky in a daze. The void was filled with countless densely packed black dots. There were so many of them that they had never seen before. It's not a living thing. Could it be the Gongshu clan's mechanical beasts? Dustless looked up at the sky. Compared to the others, his dynamic strength was shocking. Through the sky full of feathers, he could see at a glance the scene 100 meters above him. They were all mechanical beasts that looked like bats. Mechanical beasts. Old Ban's heart sank slightly. That old man Gongshu Cho actually took advantage of this opportunity to hit us when we're down. I'll take this opportunity to humiliate him. Haha, a hoarse laugh came from outside the clinic. Everyone was stunned and looked over at the same time. A stooped old man with a slightly ferocious face appeared. You're already a turtle in a jar, yet you still dare to talk nonsense. TSK, this old man has a new understanding of the Mo family. Compared to the careful work of making mechanical beasts, your Mo family may be better at using a glib tongue. The old man riding the mechanical snake was getting closer and closer. The curved snake's body was ridiculously thick, even bigger than a person. Dustless happened to know this old man who was familiar with Old Ban. Gongshu Cho. Dustless's eyes narrowed slightly. He knew the identity of the old man at a glance. Seeing his smug look, he sneered. Old men who don't die are thieves. You're so eloquent. It seems you're the thief saint among thieves. Ha! Everyone from the Mo family was grinning from ear to ear. They stared at Wu Qin in astonishment. Not only was this guy strong, but his ability to bicker was also superb. Gongshu Chao's old face twitched a few times. He stared at Dustless and said with a fake smile, Young hero, are you Dustless? You're really as handsome as heroine Qilian said. This old man deeply admires you for being able to remain calm in such a situation, but... Gongshu Chao's eyes narrowed slightly. He warned fiercely, I don't know martial arts, and your enemy is not me. This old man advises you to turn a deaf ear to the mechanical beasts duel between the Mo family and the Gongshu family. If you interfere, don't blame this old man for being hostile. Ah! As soon as he finished speaking, Gongshu Cho pulled the lever that controlled the mechanical snake. Chapter 1797. This guy is so despicable. The others didn't know the inside story, but Duanmu Rong, who knew the inside story, had a murderous look in her eyes, and her delicate face was covered with a layer of cold frost. Miss Duanmu, what's wrong? To tell you the truth, although I didn't see the peerless beauty of the Mahis mechanical beasts, how could they be defeated by the Gongshu family's tyrannical mechanical arts? Dustless saw Duanmu Rong's cold appearance and keenly sensed something was wrong. This kind of thing, if it was in the past, I naturally wouldn't intervene. This is related to the grievances between the Mahist and Gongshu families, and there must be a day when they are resolved, but the current situation is different. Duanmu Rong took the initiative to approach Dustless and whispered, "The Mahist doctrine advocates love with impartiality and non-aggression. Most of the mechanical beasts are tools to help people, and they are all made to save manpower." This guy really knows how to talk nonsense. Dustless rolled his eyes and snorted at Duanmu Rong's words. She didn't mean what she said, and silently slandered in her heart. The Mahist's 4 great mechanical beasts, Azure Dragon, Vermilion Bird, Black Tortoise, and White Tiger, are all used to attack. They are even more ferocious than the tyrannical mechanical arts of the Gongshu family. But on the surface, Dustless's expression didn't change. He pretended to be at a loss and asked, "The mechanical beasts are huge. Did Old Ban not bring his mechanical beasts?" "That's not it." Duanmu Rong's face was full of worry. "When Old Ban came, he only brought a mechanical bird. How can it fight with the Gongshu family's mechanical snake? There is no need to compete at all. We are doomed to lose." "I see." Dustless suddenly understood. The mechanical bird was not aggressive. Normally, it was only used for reconnaissance and had no fighting power. But now, Gongshu Cho wanted to compete with Old Ban. Wasn't this taking advantage of the situation? Duanmu Rong despised this guy, but there was nothing she could do. "Old man, I'll be your opponent." Under the shocked gazes of Duanmu Rong, and the others, Dustless took a few steps forward magnanimously, and his tranquil eyes were suffused with a wisp of interest. "This snake looks ferocious and mighty, but that's only on the surface. Maybe he's just like you on the inside, a golden jade on the outside but rotten on the inside." Calmly looking at Gongshu Chiu, Wu Chen provoked, "Old man, bring it on." "Humph, sharp-tongued bastard, you're courting death." Unable to bear it any longer, Gongshu Chiu finally exploded. No matter what, he was an old man, and an important minister of Yingzheng. Yet, after being mocked and scolded by Dustless again and again, he was filled with anger. Gongshu Chiu, that idiot, was infuriated by that guy's words. Above the void, a large pure white bird was flying back and forth, soaring in the sky. On the back of the bird stood a handsome young man with an extraordinary temperament. Taking a closer look, this person was none other than Bai Feng from Quicksand. Since this guy can defeat Qi Lian, I reckon he has some skills. Bai Feng, who had excellent eyesight, looked down at both parties who were confronting each other on the ground, putting on an elegant posture as if it had nothing to do with her. What an eyesore! Dustless raised his head and looked at the sky. The sharp whistling of the large bird flying in the sky made people's ears go numb, and its eagle-like eyes were extremely sharp, like a hunter sizing up its prey, occasionally revealing a playful look. "It's a hot day, and flying in the sky is too tiring. Why don't you go take a bath in the cold lake and relax yourself?" Dustless's eyes began to change, and the deep black pupils were replaced by 3 scarlet jade eyes. "You want me to take a bath in the water? You're so considerate of others, that even I don't have the heart to attack you." Bai Feng controlled the phoenix to descend, and when it was about 70 to 80 feet above Dustless's head, she crossed her arms and stared at Dustless, saying, "However, I'm afraid you don't have the ability to kick me into the lake to take a bath." As her voice fell, Bai Feng stared coldly at Dustless, her bright eyes were as dazzling as the stars. What an arrogant fellow! Everyone from the Mo family raised their eyebrows. This fellow was extremely arrogant, but it was undeniable that this fellow had the right to be arrogant. He was strong enough. "You sinister fellow, you're obviously making things difficult for Brother Dustless. If you have the ability, come down." Yu pouted and complained, "At such a high distance, could Brother Dustless grow wings and attack you? If he can't do it, he can only be considered useless. It's fine to be young and frivolous, but," glancing at Dustless, Bai Feng coldly snorted and said, but it also depends on who the enemy is. Blindly speaking such arrogant words, yet you don't even have the strength to touch my body. You're just asking to be humiliated. Too pitiful. This fellow's strength is ordinary, but his poisonous mouth is extraordinarily formidable. Hearing Bai Feng's mocking words, Dustless shot a disapproving glance at her. Soon after, his enchanting three-tomo Sharingan slowly rotated, focusing his gaze on the massive white phoenix beneath his feet. You're only Wei Zhuang's subordinate. Frankly speaking, you're just a lackey that helps the tiger do evil. You don't have the qualifications for me to take action against you. Call your master over. What did you say? Hearing this, an undetectable ferocious and vicious aura flashed across Bai Feng's face. Just as she was about to launch a sneak attack on Dustless, the large pure white bird beneath his feet suddenly went crazy without any warning. A-oh, 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 a-oh. A sharp roar resounded across the vast sky. Following this, under the confused gazes of the crowd, the large bird seemed to have gone berserk as it crazily screeched, its screeches containing endless pain. You've been hit by the illusion of the Sharingan. Enjoy it properly. A mischievous smile flashed across Dustless's face as he stared at the latrine in the distance. The strange smile at the corner of his mouth was extremely evil. Sending Bai Feng to take a bath in the icy cold lake on such a hot day would be letting him off too easily. Chapter 1798. What's going on? Bai Feng's expression turned cloudy as she stared at the berserk white phoenix beneath her feet. Her brows furrowed together in an exaggerated manner. Out of control. That's absolutely impossible. This has never happened before. Bai Feng's eyes darted around. She had no choice but to squat down and grab the bird's back to maintain her balance. If she continued to stand in the limelight like before, she would most likely fall down. Good skill, Dustless's ear-piercing voice resounded across the sky as he mocked, "What's going on? Did the beast under your feet lose control? Looks like even your mount can't tolerate someone like you." This fellow, Dustless chuckled when she heard this. She raised her head to look at the giant bird in the sky. Although she did not know what was going on, there was no doubt that Dustless was deliberately making things difficult for Bai Feng. This beast has a very stubborn temper. It actually dares to resist me. Dustless stared at the berserk bird as a contemptuous smile appeared on his face. However, this is the end. Dustless's three-tomo Sharingan that had been dormant in his eye socket started to rotate once again. A-oh, 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 a-oh. With the enhancement of his eye power, the pure white bird could no longer maintain its balance. Blood could be clearly seen flowing out of its beak as its miserable cries made one's scalp turn numb. Is this the doing of this fellow? How dare he? Veins popped out on Bai Feng's forehead as she clenched her fists tightly. Her heart was bleeding. The white phoenix was Bai Feng's mount when she was young. It had been more than 10 years since then. Now that it was being tortured and humiliated by Dustless, Bai Feng could empathize with it and her anger soared. Why are you looking at me so fiercely? Dustless had an innocent look as he stared at Bai Feng, who was holding the white phoenix's back tightly. He said loudly, "TSK, TSK, do you still remember that I said that I would treat you to a free bath? Now, the location has changed." Dustless pointed at the toilet and said innocently, "The toilet suits you better." You bastard. Bai Feng, who was at the end of her patience, let loose a torrent of abuse as her eyes widened. Compared to Dustless, who was proficient in the art of scolding others, Bai Feng's angry scolding had zero effect on the former. The ancient people cultivated their moral character and were extremely concerned about their moral character. Scolding others was really not their forte. It was already commendable that Bai Feng could call him a bastard. Get in there now. Dustless sneered and blinked his three-tomo Sharingan again. Then, under everyone's gaze, the white phoenix dragged its master white phoenix towards the toilet like a falling meteor. This guy is really filthy. Duanmu Rong's cheeks burned as she cursed Dushless in her heart for being shameless and black-hearted. Throwing a famous expert into the latrine pit, Bai Feng would never be able to raise his head again. Swish! Swish! The giant bird fell rapidly, flapping its wings, creating gusts of wind as it sped towards the latrine. Am I going to be ruined in this guy's hands? Dream on. Bai Feng's face darkened as he waved his pale fingers. Goose feathers filled the sky as he leaped out and landed slowly on the feather-like feathers. Bai Feng's strength is not bad, especially his qigong, which has reached a level that ordinary people can't reach. Everyone from the Mo family and the Xiong clan of Chu country nodded their heads in amazement. To be able to land on feathers from high up in the sky, such an experienced qigong was rarely seen in the world. Humph, what a fool's dream. You want me to fall into the latrine pit? You are really ambitious. Bai Feng, who had landed safely, sneered as he looked around. His eyes widened slightly and his brows were tightly knitted together. He was surprised to find that Dushless had disappeared as though he had vanished from the face of the earth. What a fast speed! Everyone exclaimed. They had thought that Bai Feng's qigong was unparalleled in the world. However, they had not expected Dushless to surpass him. His speed was so fast that it was unprecedented. How can a person's speed be so fast? Why didn't I even see him disappear? Tianming's mouth was wide open like a fool as he tugged at the corner of Gunia's clothes. However, Gunia ignored him. Tianming looked at Gunia curiously and realized that Gunia's face was as blank as his. Where did he go? Bai Feng clenched his fists and swept them around. The humiliation that Dushless had brought to him must be returned in double. Young Master Bai Feng, the person behind you is very strange. Don't be careless. Gong Shu Cho, who was hiding in the mechanical snake, reminded Bai Feng loudly. He could clearly see the flickering black wind behind Bai Feng. An evil figure and a playful silhouette were also faintly discernible. Caw caw caw. Gong Shu Cho decisively pulled the lever and controlled the mechanical snake to pounce on the black figure behind Bai Feng. It's too late. Dustless took advantage of Bai Feng's carelessness to grab his right arm and kick him mercilessly. Bang! A dull explosion sounded out, and Bai Feng was sent flying by Dustless's kick like a cannonball. Bai Feng's heart sank as he saw that he was about to crash into the latrine. Could it be that my reputation will be ruined by this latrine? Bai Feng's face turned green and white. He wished that Dushless could kill him with a single blow so that he could leave behind a good name. He didn't want his name to go down in history, but he definitely didn't want to be called a latrine man. Caw caw caw. Bai Feng's body trembled violently, and his bones were about to fall apart. Bai Feng turned his head and saw that it was the mechanical snake that had appeared in the nick of time. At the crucial moment, Gong Shu Cho had resolutely controlled the mechanical snake to give up on attacking Dustless and move behind Bai Feng. That was why Bai Feng had crashed into the mechanical snake. This annoying old man really likes to meddle in other people's business. Dustless smacked his lips in pity. Just as Bai Feng was about to crash into the latrine, that damned Gong Shu Cho had appeared to save him and salvage Bai Feng's reputation. Chapter 1800. Gulp. Gong Shu Cho was not the only one panicking. Even Bai Feng, who was beside him, tried her best to remain calm and rational. Her face still looked calm, but in fact, she was drenched in cold sweat. This guy's eyes. What kind of experience did he have to train such a terrifying gaze? It's as if he came from hell and can see through people's hearts. Bai Feng exclaimed in his heart. Not to mention a mere Gong Shu Cho, even he felt his scalp go numb from that gaze that was as cold as a knife, his heart palpitating with fear. Damn it, we've kicked an iron plate this time. Gong Shu Cho cursed in his heart. He had thought that this task would be easy, but it had suddenly become a fatal problem. Even he and Bai Feng had fallen into a trap. Attack! Gong Shu Cho and Bai Feng looked at each other. They could see the killing intent in each other's eyes. Caw caw caw. Gong Shu Cho pulled the lever that controlled the snake again, and its huge body swayed again. Ao 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 ao, a faint hiss came from the snake's throat. It was cold and violent, and then its huge body shrank together, accumulating strength. Boom boom boom. After a moment of silence, the snake's entire body finally swooped down like a cannonball. Bang bang bang. Its body was full of explosive power, and all of it slammed into Dustless's fist. According to common sense, the obstacles in front of it should have been crushed in an instant. However, this was only common sense. Hey, hey, hey. Gong Shu Cho, this stinky snake of yours, is that all you have? It's like a mosquito. It can't even withstand a single blow. Gong Shu Cho, your eloquence is the best in the world, but your skill in the art of mechanisms is really unflattering. Dustless mocked Gong Shu Cho without restraint. Don't go too far. Gong Shu Cho roared in a hoarse voice. He wanted to cry. As the favorite person of Yingjing, anyone who met him would treat him with respect. At the very least, they would call him Mr. Gong Shu. Now, Dustless was cursing him like a clown, especially in front of his old rival, Old Man Ban. How could he tolerate it? Boom boom boom. When he focused his gaze, he saw the huge body of the mechanical snake move once more. It suddenly swung its tail, and its huge body crashed into Dustless. Unfortunately, the man only raised his palm casually and blocked the mechanical snake's attack effortlessly. That fair palm blocked all of the snake's attacks. How is this possible? How can a human block the attack of a mechanical snake? Master Ban's heart was also in turmoil. The mechanical skill was created to save manpower. If all human beings were as shocking as Dustless, what was the use of the mechanical skill? Everything had lost its meaning of existence. Is there a problem with Gong Shu Cho's mechanical snake? Duanmu Rong also felt that it was a fantasy. She asked, Dustless's strength is unreliable. He's more than strong to the point of being unreliable. Gunia's eyes narrowed slightly. His shrewd eyes shone brightly as he stared fixedly at Dustless. He said, perhaps some of the legends are true. Damn it. Gunia and the others heaved sighs of relief, but Gong Shu Cho's old face turned green. Boom boom boom. The mechanical snake continued to attack Dustless with all its strength. Its huge snake head continuously slammed into his body, but no matter how violent its strength was, all of its attacks were neutralized by Dustless's seemingly ordinary palm. Not only that, the mechanical snake's body started to emit black smoke. It seemed to have reached its limit. Caw caw caw. As time passed, Dustless was completely fine. However, the mechanical snake was the first to break down. Some of its parts started to fall apart, and huge cracks appeared on its body. Its huge body also showed signs of dissipating. Let's retreat. After a while, seeing that Gong Shu Cho was also helpless, Bai Feng had no choice but to retreat. No, if we flee in such a sorry state, where will the Gong Shu clan put its face? Gong Shu Cho shook his head stubbornly. A cunning smile flashed across his old face as he said viciously, young hero Bai Feng, you're too worried. Although Dustless is strong, he's still just one person. It's a fool's dream to think that he can protect everyone. If we target someone else, for example, as soon as he finished speaking, Gong Shu Cho's vicious gaze landed on you, Without a doubt, Yuger's strength was the weakest in this group. Caw caw caw. He decisively pulled the lever, and the mechanical snake's body, which was already on the verge of collapse, suddenly looked at Yuger. Old thing, you're courting death. Seeing this, Dustless's expression turned cold. Surging killing intent burst out of his body. His calm eyes suddenly turned red, and a deadly pressure filled the air. Gulp. Gongshu Chio's eyelids twitched as he looked at the ferocious Dustless. He suddenly felt a little regretful. He seemed to have completely angered a tiger. Wang wang wang. The sharpness of the heavenly sword of clouds expanded by dozens of times. Waves of clear cries resounded throughout the world. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Glancing at the mechanical snake's huge body, Dustless waved his hand, and the heavenly sword of clouds continued to slash out. Boom boom boom. The huge slash instantly hit the mechanical snake's bloated body. Although this thing's power was amazing, its huge disadvantage was also revealed at this moment. Caw caw caw. Due to its huge body, almost all the power of the slash was absorbed. The mighty mechanical snake instantly turned into a bug that was not worth mentioning. It was dismembered by Dustless and turned into a pile of broken parts. This absolute power blinded everyone's eyes. Just like what Dustless said before, even a flawless masterpiece was full of flaws. Chapter 1801. The mechanical snakes have been destroyed. The people from the Mo family and the Xiong family from the Chu Empire opened their mouths wide as they stared at the broken mechanical snakes. The sharp divine light left an unforgettable impression on them. That's a mechanical beast made of bronze, not wood. Master Ban yelled at the top of his lungs. His voice was sharp and piercing. Bronze and wood were two completely different things. Hurry up and chase after them. Although Gunya was astonished, his cold eyes immediately caught sight of the fleeing Gongshu Cho and Bai Feng. He immediately chased after them. Why are you still standing there like a fool? Duanmu Rong urged when she saw Dustless standing there motionlessly. Those two fellows must be eliminated. They will be a disaster if they continue to live. Hearing this, Wu Chen just smiled faintly. He casually picked up a blade of grass and held it in his mouth. He said in a bored tone, "Isn't it better to continue living? This way, they will regret living in this world." Translator, Atlas Studios editor. Atlas Studios. At the peak of a mountain, there were endless mountains that stretched for thousands of miles. It was impossible for human eyes to see the end of it. The mechanical city of the Mo family was hidden in these mountains. However, no one knew where exactly it was. At this moment, there were a few uninvited guests at the top of the mountain. Without exception, all of them were women. Moreover, they were all extremely beautiful. Judging from their attire, they all belonged to the school of Yin Yang. Young Master Ming, Great Master Ming, the current guardian of the school of Yin Yang, and the imperial advisor of the Great Qin Empire, the Moon God, were all gathered at the top of the mountain. Lord Moon God. Great Master Ming bowed slightly to show his respect. The Moon God's status and strength were higher than his in both the school of Yin Yang and the Great Qin Empire. Young Master Ming did not speak. Her eyes were calm and indifferent. According to the information from Lu Sha, the traitors of the Mo family are hiding in these mountains. Moon God looked down. Even though her eyes were covered by a veil, her vision was still clear. Her vision was even sharper than young Si Ming and Great Si Ming's. Not bad. Great Si Ming nodded as he stared at the mountains and rivers that were surrounded by mountains. He could not help but nod and praise. To be able to develop such an amazing mechanical city in such a difficult environment, the founder of the school of Mo must be an extraordinary person. Of course. The Moon Goddess said lightly, the founder of the school of Mo, Moz, was a peerless genius. Unfortunately, he was too pedantic. In this chaotic world, he actually advocated love with impartiality and non-aggression. Their thinking is too childish. It is human nature to be greedy, and it is human nature to strive for the top. This time, the Mo clan has chosen the wrong enemy, and they are destined to step into a dead end. The moon goddess is right. All enemies of the school of Yin Yang will only have one ending, death. Great Si Ming sneered. Although the school of Moism was powerful, it was nothing compared to the school of Yin Yang. In fact, there was no one among the 100 schools of thought that could compete with the school of Yin Yang. 500 years ago, the school of Yin Yang broke away from Taoism and formed its own school, known as the school of Yin Yang. Over the past 500 years, countless geniuses had appeared and created many powerful moves. This was also the foundation for the school of Yin Yang's dominance among the 100 schools of thought. However, Great Si Ming lowered his voice and said with a frown, "An unknown variable has appeared. A few generals of the quicksand have been defeated by that guy." An unknown variable. The moon goddess was unmoved. She asked calmly, "Sword Saint Gunia. If it is him, only Wei Zhuang can compete with him in the quicksand." "No, it is not him. It is an unknown variable that we have never heard of before, dushless." When the moon goddess and young Si Ming heard this, they were surprised. They lowered their heads and pondered for a while, but they could not recall any information about this person. Who is this person? He does not seem to be a famous person. The moon goddess's face, which had remained cold for thousands of years, finally softened a little. She said, "Before I left, His Excellency Dong Huang told me that I would definitely gain something from this trip to the mechanical city of the Mo clan. However, I have never heard him mention this unfamiliar name. Perhaps he is just an insignificant person. There is no need to worry. Just follow the plan." After frowning for a few seconds, the moon goddess was relieved. The confusion on her face was gone. In this world, there were many powerful people who were unknown. Why were there powerful people who were unknown? The fundamental reason was that some people were killed before they could rise to prominence and make a name for themselves. Is that really the case? Great Si Ming did not say anything. It was rare for him to doubt the moon goddess' guess. Since he could defeat Qi Lian with overwhelming strength, even if he was not as powerful as Wei Zhuang, he should be close. How could such an expert be overlooked? Swoosh! 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 A deafening sound pierced through the air. Is this the mechanical beast of the Mo clan? The moon goddess and the other two looked up at the sky. The mechanical bird in the sky was too conspicuous. It was huge and there was no way to hide. At the same time, the few figures riding on the mechanical bird noticed the moon goddess and the others. The people from the school of Yin Yang. Chapter 1803. If Dustless knew that the 3 giants of the school of Yin Yang hated him to the core and wanted to get rid of him, he would have cried but no tears would come out. This was too inexplicable. It was obviously just a pool of urine, and the one who was at a disadvantage was Dustless. Mo clan's mechanical city. If it weren't for Duanmu Rong and the other disciples of the Mo clan leading the way, it would have been difficult to find the hidden mechanical city. There were so many mountains that just looking at them would make one's head spin. The Mo clan's ancestral master is really amazing. Inside the mechanical city, Dustless exclaimed. Even though he had seen a lot, he was still shocked by the Mo clan's profound mechanical arts, and his mind was a little numb. Of course. What you see is only the tip of the iceberg, Duanmu Rong said with a smile. Duanmu Rong, who was usually reserved in speech and manner, revealed a faint smile. She proudly explained, such a huge project took more than 300 years. The internal complexity is far beyond the imagination of the world. That's right. This is the only anti-Qin paradise in the world. Ing Zheng's laws and Great Qin's cavalry can't control it, Old Ban said proudly. Anti-Qin paradise. That's an incredible title. Hearing this, Dustless smiled but didn't say anything. As the saying went, flies wouldn't bite a seamless egg. Perhaps it was because the Mo clan was too high profile that Ing Zheng had made a move on them. The most ironic thing was that Wei Zhuang only took a single day to conquer the Mo clan's mechanical city that had been built for 300 years. Was the Mo clan too stupid, or was Wei Zhuang too cunning? This question could only be answered by future generations. Swish swish swish. At that moment, a few afterimages suddenly appeared in the air, and a blurry silhouette rushed over, almost instantly rushing into the crowd. This guy, his qigong is not bad. It's not inferior to Bai Feng's at all. Dustless frowned slightly and clenched his fists. He was surprised to find that this unfriendly figure was actually coming for him. I don't think I have offended anyone in the Mo family. No, I haven't even seen them before. Puzzled, Dustless clenched his fist. Just as he was about to strike back, Duanmu Rong stood in front of him like a shield. This woman knows how to repay kindness. She's quite likable. Dustless smiled, and his impression of Duanmu Rong increased slightly. At the same time, the figure that was approaching Dustless also stopped immediately. This person's appearance could be considered handsome with delicate features. The only thing that was not flattering was that at first glance, he gave off the impression that he was the sloppy type. His cheeky smile made him look very slick. No wonder he was hostile towards me. So it was him. Dustless was relieved. In the original novel, Gunia had been too close to Duanmu Rong, which had led to the enmity of this guy. This guy had always been secretly in love with Duanmu Rong. However, the sad thing was that Prince Xiang had a dream, but the goddess had no heart. This fellow only had a one-sided love. Commander Daoji, what do you mean by this? Are you planning to attack my friend from the Mo family? Duanmu Rong asked coldly, as if she had seen a jinx. Miss Duanmu, This scene caused Daoji to be speechless. Wasn't this change too quick? Earlier, he was talking and laughing with Dustless, but now, it was his turn to have an icy mountain face and a look of disdain. Daoji was extremely depressed in his heart. Miss Duanmu, you've misunderstood. I'm just afraid that this fellow will harm you. Daoji smiled apologetically. At the same time, he stole a glance at Dustless. Jealousy welled up in his heart. Other than being slightly more handsome than me, there doesn't seem to be anything special about him. Recently, Ing Zheng's lackeys have been appearing near Mechanical City. Although the Mechanical City of the Mo family is known to be impenetrable and difficult to break through, there's no harm in being careful. Everyone has to be carefully checked. Daoji put on a stern and impartial expression. Check. Hearing this, Duanmu Rong glanced at Daoji indifferently. Her red lips moved slightly as she said, Do you know that if I hadn't stopped you just now, you might have? Are you trying to say that if you hadn't stopped me just now, this fellow would have been thrown into jail and injured innocent people? Daoji crossed his arms and did not give Duanmu Rong a chance to speak. He continued valiantly, Miss Rong, don't worry. Although I'm a notorious thief, I won't bully the weak. You've misunderstood me. Duanmu Rong glanced at Daoji with a conflicted expression. She said mercilessly, If I hadn't stopped you, you might have been carried back for emergency treatment. Ha! Do you think that I can't defeat him? Daoji was shocked by this nonsensical answer. He looked at Dustless suspiciously. He did not think that he could not defeat this pretty boy. Nice to meet you. I'm Dustless. Please take care of me in the future. Dustless greeted Daoji with a friendly fish salute. Knowing Daoji's character, he did not want to waste time with him. Dustless. Daoji pondered for a moment. He lowered his head and muttered, I seem to have heard this name before. This isn't the first time we've met, right? You're mistaken. Dustless shook his head and said, You might have remembered wrongly. This is the first time we've met. This is also the first time I've come to the mechanical city of the Mo family. Friend, perhaps you are unfamiliar with our Mo family, but our Mo family is rather familiar with you. At this moment, a black figure walked out from the depths of the corridor. He was wearing a windbreaker and a bamboo hat. There was a shocking scar on his face. It's him. Dustless's pupils shrank. He found this person familiar. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.